Königssee in Bavaria, the oldest artificially iced track on the planet. They've been sliding down the Watzmann Mountain for the better part of a century, and in 1968 opened the first artificial ice track. And it is the venue for the 2017 BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Championships. Hello everybody, herzlich willkommen in Bayern. Welcome to Bavaria as we get our championships underway on a snowy Friday with the first run of the women's bobsleigh. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me as ever, John Morgan. And John, this track well known, but it's one of the most exciting on tour.
It's a short track built really for luge. They added the Kreisel here in 1975 to give it some bobsled legitimacy. 13 curves, steep drop. But the personality of this track, it's got a steep drop to it right off the bat. Myers, Taylor, and Garrett have the start record here, but Alana Myers in the United States, she has a start record almost at every track. Easy curve one, but watch what's coming up. The 4 S's on this track. They call it the snake pit or the Schlauengrube. Left, right, another left, and then you have to exit. Slingshot effect under the bottom to a straightaway? It's not a straightaway, it's a bend away. You got to hit here a couple times. Quick turn under the Kreisel, the Turbodrome. Boy, we're gonna have some exciting pictures for you out of this. Then you have to exit into this 100-meter thing they call the Labyrinth. It's a dangerous section of the track. A lot of people could have some problems there. 4 G's of force. Not big speed, but you exit here at an Ecovod. You go uphill for another 180 meters. Made a lot of mistakes there. That could be the graveyard of time for you. Myers, Taylor, Garrett, she's got the track record here from a couple years ago. And the weather conditions doesn't look like when we shot the POV. It's a little rainy here, Martin.
Yeah, it was raining this morning and the temperature continues to drop. It is turning into a sleety snow. Pilot sleds are going down, and I expect that they will report that conditions of visibility at least are good. Of course, it will make the ice very, very different. Water on top of ice makes it unbelievably slippery for the runners, so that's going to be a real challenge for our athletes. In the World Championship, 4 runs. Fastest 20 of our field go through into the final heat. There's Alana Myers-Taylor, and she's got a good record. She's on a 3-peat here on this track, won the last 2 races here.
4 straight in the World Cup.
Yep, so she's having a real tear this season. You can see what conditions are like. Nadezhda Sergeva, 4th in the World Cup standings, double world and double Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries. She's got to be a hopeful here, but she's only had a couple of wins in her career on this track. Germany's got 3 women in the hunt. Kristen Zenkel and Mariama Yamanka is their main hopeful here. There's Mariama. Last German woman to win here was 5 years ago. That was Kathleen Martini. And the last German woman not called Kathleen Martini to win on this track was back in 2006 when Sandra Kiriakis won it. In a decade, Martini took 5 wins and 3 further medals. China being represented here for the very first time. So we have 22 sleds on our start list from 13 nations, and China makes its first step into the World Championships.
Pretty impressive to have China now involved.
36 nations at the opening ceremony last night from bobsled and skeleton, so this is really gaining momentum here. You can see the very first sled getting ready to go. Here's our start order then. Maria Oshigiri gets the random draw from outside the top 10 in the World Cup rankings. She goes off first, ahead Switzerland's Maria Fontanive. Once you get down to 6th position on the start draw, that's our top 10 in the world, and look to there for our front runs to come. Maybe Sergeva, the Russian, maybe Rodionova, her teammate, Jamie Grubel-Poser, Kaylee Humphries, Alana Myers-Taylor, Mariama Yamanka, junior world champion Misha McNeil maybe. And Germany's Kristen Zenkel, she could spring a surprise here as well. So today, the first 2 heats. Tomorrow, the 3rd and deciding final heat will go. Bobsleigh track on the left. On the right, you saw what is the luge track. The luge start is higher and further up behind our start house. The 2017 BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Championships gets underway at Königssee in Bavaria with 22-year-old Japanese Maria Oshigiri and her 21-year-old brakewoman Arisa Kimishima. Kimishima in her first ever season on ice.
She's done great. She's a 11.7 sprinter, and 11.3 I think is the fastest time in Japan at the date. So these Japanese have been impressive.
Raced here in January, finished in 10th position. This is the first ever World Championships for all these Japanese drivers.
She's ranked 18 in World Cup points. Her best finish was a 13th in Altenburg, and that's a pretty impressive accomplishment for a first-year really driver, driving this Swiss sled that they rented. Start time, you know, they're the rabbit. They got the best track to work with, you would think, but with the weather conditions so fickle, it's snowing at the top of the track, it's raining at the bottom of the track.
And when the weather changes in any kind of racing, that's where experience is your greatest ally. Down through the Labyrinth, neat and tidy, and you've got to keep the speed alive as you start to come uphill through Echo and up the last couple of corners. Camera is not misleading. This is uphill all the way to the finish line. Maria Oshigiri starts the World Championships 51.92. The very first slide here of this 2017 weekend, or 2 weekends of action.
1.6 seconds, 1.5 plus off the track record. So that tells you the conditions of the track. Depends what it does here in the next hour. It gets a little colder. Now this is the exit of the Kreisel, and now watch these pictures here. These are compelling, and you really have to see that's a great transition there.
Not bad at all.
Really good transition. The back end of the sled crossed over left to right, very nice.
One sled down, 21 to go, and very quickly away, the Swiss 30-year-old Martina Fontanivi. And a first ever, I believe, in World Championship, we have a pair of twin sisters competing, and this is Rahel Rebsamen on the back of the Swiss sled.
Identical twins. We almost didn't have to do a headshot, except one of them's got longer hair than the other.
One's blonde, one's dark, so one's the evil twin, and one's the good twin, clearly.
I'm married to a twin, so watch out there. Watch out now. She's coming off injury from last year. Martina, she had a congestion in her head, and a lot of problems with breathing.
Big sinus problem she had, which kept her off the ice. And her brakewoman, brand new, 22-year-old from Lucerne.
2900s behind their Swiss sled versus a Swiss sled.
And Fontaniva has got a little bit of experience. Her brakewoman, this is her second ever race, other than a Swiss training race. So Rahel Rebsamen has started one Europa Cup race, and in fact that was here with Martina last December. So the Swiss line second.
Look how late she is here off the exit. You don't want to do that, because then you got to have the track dictate to you where you're going to go. Tough down there in that little labyrinth, that tricky section. Probably the trickiest 100 meters that exist on the planet on any bob track.
Dry under the shelter in this huge start house for our third slider. Christine de Bruyne, 16th in last year's World Championships in women's bobsleigh. That was her first ever. There's the coach of the Canadian team, Graham Richardson, ready to turn the sled over. Christine, 27-year-old, originally from Edmonton, now lives in Calgary, Alberta. And Geneviève Thibault, she's the only Frenchie in the team. She's a 30-year-old from Quebec City in Quebec.
Rugby sevens player.
In fact, this is her third national team squad. She was in the national rugby sevens team. She was also a national standard track and field athlete. And of course, the greatest rugby player in Canadian bobsledding, Heather Moyse, multiple medalist, and that's...
Little drift there. And Heather Moyse was also recently inducted into the World Rugby Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Heather.
Yep, no surprises at all. Little behind on the start, 800s behind. Christine de Bruyne, another former brakewoman turned driver. You can see the tracks that the sled is leaving on the ice. That's because there is this fine, wet, slushy snow on top.
Well, she was 400s down at the start to 10, and she's got the ability to catch the Japanese sled. Oshigiri here on the bottom, but she's lost more time back.
She was 1 mile an hour slower than the Japanese. And the Japanese have the advantage of that Swiss Citius sled, 1600s back for the Canadian.
But this is a rented sled too.
Yep.
French.
52.08. Well, red, white and blue, so Quebecois or French colours certainly.
Yeah, but I think they rented that from the French. I saw her in training, and I'm pretty sure.
And their teammates are going to have to be very careful on that wet ice.
Watch the lines here in the back. Watch the slider. It's going to come to the drift to the right side.
Brakewoman slipped as she went in there, Genevieve.
Look at that. That's.
And look at the marks it leaves through that slush.
Yeah.
Now that's not the ice being soft. That's a layer of slush on top. But Genevieve, I think, slipped on that last step. See one of her many nicknames, Gigi, on the back of her helmet. So for Germany then, Stefanie Schneider, European Championship bronze medalist, her first ever senior level race just a few weeks ago. 26-year-old from Saxony, a former athletic thrower. And bronze in the World Championships 2015, breaking for Anja Schneiderheinze.
This should be a good start, should be in the 20s. This is a very good athlete in the front seat for the Germans. She crashed a lot earlier in the season in Vancouver. She broke her collarbone, still has shoulder problems. They brought her back in Winterberg. She crashed again in Winterberg, missed that race. So she's had a long season, and if she gets down here 4 heats, I think she's going to impress people with her result.
Well, she was 4th in last year's World Championships, again as a brakewoman, so that's how far she's come on, Stefanie Schneider.
26 start.
2300s in front. She had a long slide down the bendy straightaway. Nice run through the lower labyrinth, and that's such a key to speed at the bottom of the track. 67.9 miles an hour.
She's losing time back, though, and that's not going to help. You hit there going uphill. I call that a graveyard of time section on this track.
And she takes the lead.
Boy, she barely hung in there. I tell you, as I said, Oshigira from Japan, I'm impressed with how far she's come in 6 races.
Yeah, no question at all. Oshigiri has really stepped up enormously this season into the World Cup. Here's the bend away.
Well, it's certainly not a straightaway. You got to hit her a couple times, but you don't want to be skidding, turning sideways like that. That was costly. This was a really bad mistake. Came off here early out of the Ecovon, and that's an uphill section. TV doesn't do it justice. You could erase a lot of good time right there with a couple taps.
Stefanie Schneider has the lead of the race from Maria Oshigiri and Christine De Bruyn. 4 of our 22 sleds down, and the 5th of our starters is Anne van Nieuwenhuizen, 25-year-old Belgian, 17th in last year's World. She finished 11th in the January race here, and a late change, Nell Paulison on the back of the sled in place of Sophie Verkruijsen. 21-year-old Nell started with Anne.
We just heard about an hour before the race on the change. Boy, way back, 2100s back at the start. But she's a good driver, but she's going to have a perfect run to have any chance to get in the top 3 here.
Yeah, just outside the top 10 in the World Cup race here just 3 weeks ago.
Look at these lines. These lines are great.
And although there are only 2 Belgian drivers in the field, we will see all 3 Belgian sleds in the field today. We'll get to explaining that a little later.
Exit. 38. This isn't bad considering the start deficiency. She started 2100s back. She's only 36, 3800s back. She gets it down into 15, 1800s back. Oh, no, not going to happen.
Well, she's in 4th place on the splits behind
Good speed,
Christine
best speed. Oh, look at her duck her head. Considering she's 2100s back at the start, she only loses by 3300s at the bottom. She had the best speed in the bottom, but with that type of deficiency on this short track, boy, it's really tough to overcome.
Anne's only 5'5". Nell Paulison brings the average height of the team right up to 5'6".
Well, what's the back end of the sled? The transition, the exit of the curve to the take-on of the curve, the outlet to the take-on, and then here in the, look at her duck her head. I mean, it doesn't take much to duck her head, but perfect. Another 100th of a second on this track, 100th of a second's a lot.
Can make a position, easily make a position. First 5 down, and it is Stefanie Schneider of Germany who leads the first of 4 heats in the Women's Bobsleigh World Championship. You won't need me to tell you the next sled is from Canada, and the 6th of our starters is the 2nd of our Canadians. Alicia Risling, the 28-year-old former basketball player, ex-brakewoman. She was 13th in her first ever World Championships last year in Innsbruck in Austria, and on this track in January, she finished in 9th position in our World Cup race.
4th and 5th at the 2 World Cups in North America to open the season. So she's got some talent. Boy, the weather, look at it. It changes every time we go up there with a different sled. Best start so far.
Pretty nasty weather.
Cynthia Appia has raced this season and won, I think, with Kaylee Humphries.
Yes, she has. Cynthia, 26-year-old customer service agent for the Toronto Blue Jays during the summer. 500 of the lead.
Oh, it's going to really hurt her, though. There's the normal 2 hits. That little skid above that was definitely negative to her time at the bottom.
She too had a top 10 finish here in January, 9th place. And Alyssa Rissling has really come on so strong this season.
She can drive. I mean, she drives on a track like Whistler. If you can drive successfully at Whistler, you can drive any place.
Still leading a German here in Bavaria by 100 of a second.
Do it, though. She's probably going to be red numbers.
73.1, good speed. And she has the lead.
So she did find some time on the bottom uphill section of the track.
Schneider didn't have the speed. Top speed at the bottom, in fact, is Amber Nieuwenhuizen, the Belgian, and second fastest was the Japanese girl, Maria Oshigiri.
When you see that -1 like she was with the 5th best start, you thought she would have been overhauled there at the bottom, but she hung in there. This is the mistake. Little bit of skid on the 4th S. Maybe came out too early. So there's 1. There's 2 hits. Now she comes down and takes the normal 2 more hits. So that's 2 hits too many. Here on the bottom part of the track, these are good lines. Sleds are getting through that section of the track. Very nice today.
Hard working down the bottom from their teammates. Next up, the first of our Austrian sleds. This is Christina Hengster. 6th in last year's World Championships in Eagle. She crashed in the first heat and fought back from that to finish in 6th place.
She's 4th in World Cup points, including a 2nd place at the opening event in Whistler.
And her brakewoman Jennifer turns 23 tomorrow when they'll hopefully race a try for a top 6 finish.
One of the better drivers in the field, and I hope I don't jinx it.
No, don't say stuff like that already. We're only half a dozen sleds in. 5:32 start, so that left them 800s behind at the start.
She's medaled on this track before. Look at those lines. 2200s back, bang. 3 hits. Now she can accumulate speed here and exit with a slingshot effect into what the Canadians call the doodles. This little Labyrinth section down here that Steve Holcomb doesn't like us to say that, but ooh, a little late there. She squared herself up on the exit of the last Labyrinth.
2200s back, and she was about half a mile an hour shy on speed.
She's bringing it back, though. She might get it to single digits.
Could be top 3 at the line.
14,
4th place at the line by 100th behind Maria Oshigiri of Japan.
I still, you know, Oshigiri went first.
Yeah.
So maybe this is telling us the track, warm conditions, the rain, maybe the track's slowing up a little bit.
Arch Russian fan down there in the green hat is getting ready as Christina Hengster finishes her run.
That's who we gave a ride to the track today.
Yes, it is. We gave him a ride in the rain.
Watch the back end of the sled here. When I say square it up, watch the sled come through here. It didn't transition through to the curve. Look at it bounce in the air. So when I say square up, that's what it means. She came through the late on the 3rd Labyrinth and friction, change of direction, probably, look at, she's below the other lines.
Yeah, getting a bit of wall, and there is her brakewoman, Jennifer. Up at the top of the track, the music heralds the arrival of the first of our pair of Russian sleds. This is the better of our drivers this year from Russia, Nadezhda Sergeva, the 29-year-old former brakewoman. Best ever World Cup result, 4th place in Winterberg in January. She was 5th here in January as well. She is a definite top 6 contender.
Been improving at the start every single race.
Well, last year in Eagles, she was 11th in the World Championship. That seems like ancient history now. She's had such a good season.
600s back. She went from 200s to 600s. That means she did not negotiate that first curve with the proper angle. That's how she does here. 8 back, and she plays a little pinball.
Little ping pong, but that's not too bad.
5 hits. You only want to do it twice. Speed is good, though.
Yeah, 800s behind. That is the fastest speed.
That's the line. Watch out here, watch out.
Oh, and she's gone.
You can see it.
She may not make the finish line, and that is the end of her World Championships because her brakewoman, Anastasia Kotsecheva, couldn't hang on.
You could see the exit. She came out of the Kreisel too early. Sled went back up. And she had no chance down in that Labyrinth section, which I call the most dangerous 150-meter section of any track on the planet.
And it hasn't quite reached level.
And this sled's going all the way back.
And there's her brakewoman, Anastasia. She got spat out. She knows that the World Championships for them is over. They didn't cross the finish line
together.
together.
They had great hopes.
And
I'm surprised.
Najedsta needs to bury herself in that sled.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have somebody catching it.
Yeah. And the doctors are on the way down to the low point. Anastasia, do not get in, because the track workers know what they're doing. The sled will go all the way down to the lowest point. It'll go further back up the hill.
This guy will catch it, though. This guy will catch it. Now we'll just get Sarajevo, get her out of the track there. Oh, he might not be able to hold. No, he's going to bring it back down.
Yeah, he's going to bring it back.
I'm surprised he doesn't try and let her out.
Under control. Well, she's clearly hunkered down inside.
Well, the first victim of that Labyrinth, it won't be the last. I had said earlier that it looked like the sleds were transitioning well through there.
There is our big Russian fan, travels to all these races. And no matter what the weather and how few stalwarts are out there, he will always be supporting the Russian team. And I'm afraid that's very disappointing for the Russians and especially for Sergeva.
Yeah, it was their best hope. And she had been improving. As you said, 5th here a couple weeks ago, 4th in Winterberg earlier in the season. She ranked 5th in World Cup points.
I think her worst result this season was equivalent to her best.
She came out too early. Came out too early.
Well, she hauled it off late, didn't she, and really hauled it off into the wall.
And then she came off too early, hit that take on, and then she got forced over, 2 hits, and now sled's got no play. I don't know if I've ever seen a sled roll like this. Usually they go the other way.
And are you surprised that Königssee got thrown out of the sled? Look at that.
Look at the
impact is just knocking the sled away from her. She takes it all on the head and the shoulders.
Now this is about 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Look at the sled, almost came back. Look at the front top runner. The sled, look at the articulation on the sled. It almost came back.
And then the weight of the bodies just rolled it over. 74 miles an hour.
Upside down. Now here's where she gets ejected, look.
Yeah.
She hits the right, her right, our left, and then comes over here, forces it, now it's over. So she just came out of there too early. And then these hits.
And the violence of it as well. How anybody hangs on in there, I can't imagine. And the wall cam.
Look at these pictures. 70 plus miles an hour, and we can only hope that Sergeva is okay. Looks like she is. They're hauling the sled away. The medical people have got her up there.
You see how much slush is down the bottom. It's been raining all day long.
I see both Russian athlete doctors have got Sergeva.
Well, there is Najedsta, and unfortunately, that's the last we'll see of her until, I think, the team competition. There's the German doctor.
The tallest doctor on tour, 6'9". I just call him Dirk Nowitzki of Germany.
Stretch. Yeah. Well, he will make sure that she is A-OK. Sunday there is a team race, and I believe that Sergeva, well, there are 2 Russian teams entered, so Sergeva would be one of their pair of drivers in that. And as you can see, the rain, snow, almost turning to hail now.
1 more minute, so this means the track is going to take a little bit more of a accumulation of this wet snow.
Yep.
And if I'm the people at the bottom, Elisa Riesling of Canada is the leader. I'm like it. Look what's going on here.
Yep.
I mean, this is a sport dealing with hundreds of seconds and, you know, and trying to reduce friction. Well, this heavy, wet snow isn't really a lubricant. It detracts it. Riesling, Schneider, Garrett. I would expect that Hankster to be in the front of all 3 of those sleds.
Well, it's not the World Championships and the peak of the season for nothing. And there's a great chance that Oshigiri could pull off a huge result here. Of course, she's got to do it 3 more times. So after our delay, we are back with the 9th of our 22 starters, and Elfia Willemsen could have done with anything other than a long wait before she starts. I'm Martin Haven, John Morgan alongside me as we watch the first of 4 heats of the Women's Bobsleigh World Championships.
Well, you look at the weather, now we're getting a little fog up there. I mean, you know, where we're sitting inside this little canyon, this mountain range, weather up here, you bat your eyes, it can change.
5:45 start only, and Van Nieuwenhuis, her teammate, was slower. Same speed as Martina Fonteneve of Switzerland.
Well, the best speed so far is by the Belgian sled that's been down. And if there's anybody that's going to match her, it would be her teammate here, Elfie, who, one of the Belgian bullets. They don't get great starts, but they know how to point their sled in the right direction. But that speed there, 108.4, not very good speed at all.
Well, Elfie finished 6th here in the January World Cup race, so she definitely has got speed on this track.
That was pretty encouraging to be that far back at only 4,200s back, now only 40, only the 8th best speed. She'll get it into the 30s probably.
7th place at the split, 7th at the line. 52.19 for Elfie Willemsen and Sarah Ertz.
She got 300s behind her teammate.
She's had a pair of silver medal finishes here in Königssee, Elfie Willemsen, in the last 2 or 3 seasons.
There's some Belgian fans.
Yeah, everybody is going to be fairly soggy by the end of the day.
Yeah, you have to have that attitude, mental toughness.
In the background in the black jacket, Thomas Schwab, former luge athlete for Germany, Olympian, and now in charge of this World Championships. And 2 sleds ago, we saw Nadezhda Sergeyeva crash out for Russia. What does that do to the jitters for our 10th starter, her teammate Alexandra Rodionova? 33-year-old former luge athlete. She finished in 6th position in Whistler in luge. Didn't make the team for Sochi, and therefore she changed to bobsleigh to try and make the team for Pyeongchang, Korea, where we will be in 4 weeks from now.
She's 6th in World Cup points, and probably has been down this track more than anybody in the field, but of course in luge and bobsleigh.
And luge, the Labyrinth is, if anything, even more of a challenge than it is in a bobsleigh. They get flipped and thrown all over the place.
Clock starts.
5:36 start, 1200s behind.
You know, she's had her moments.
Great woman Julia Schock-Schwaber turned 29 on Tuesday of this week from St. Petersburg.
Boy, she's way back. That start, only 1200s, now it's 3700s. Ooh, a lot of ice there.
This pair, we talked about the team championship. This pair are already World Championship silver medalists. Last year in Eagles, the Russian team that they were in finished in the silver medal position.
Well, she's losing more time. 5th best speed's pretty good, coming 10th.
She's drifting away out to the bottom of the top 10. 9th of our 9 sleds.
Very surprised. Now I'm starting to get suspicious.
Olympic champion Alexander Zubkov on the right-hand side there.
Getting suspicious of the track. We're going to find out the next 4 out of 5 athletes coming down the track, to me, are the medalists.
Yep.
He's got the wrong sign up, though.
Yeah, well, he's got Rodionova, that's her.
That's true. I take it back. Wow, he's a fan.
He's fully signed
Look at
up.
the S's. 4 of them. You have to hit so precise here in these S's, because you have to exit here, slingshot onto the bottom, and if you come out of there with a skid, no chance.
Yeah. So Jamie Grubel-Poser, our Olympic bronze medalist from the Sochi Games, 33-year-old former heptathlete. Asia Evans, the 28-year-old from Chicago, is her brakewoman. Asia's only former appearance in the World Championships, Samaritz in 2013 with Jasmine Fenlater, who now races for Jamaica.
Jamie won a gold medal in Lake Placid, their home track, 520, best start in the field. Ooh, took a lot of ice on that take-on. Kind of velocity she's got there. Look at that, she's lost her advantage at the start, and I think it's related to that hard hit before the first curve. Look at that, I really think the track has got some issues. These are perfect. Normal 2 hits, that's the way you get through them.
Bit heavy, 109.4, that's half a mile an hour down on speed. We've lost the camera in the Kreisel, that's why you're not seeing the pictures.
Here she comes, this is pretty good. She went from +4, +3, speed in the bottom. Has to be perfect here in this exit. She is.
Nice.
Down to 1, 8th best time. She could get into the green. It could be a tie.
Going to be very close. 200s in a second. Top 3 covered by 400s. There's Coach Brian Scheimer, himself a former World Championship medalist.
I'm putting out a little flag on the track. I think the weather
Well, you know,
has
those
induced it, but it's okay. It's a 4-heat race.
Well.
It's a 4-heat race.
Yep.
And you know, when you go to a racetrack, in horse track racing, if it's muddy, you don't have people pack up and go home. Look at that.
Yep.
That was definitely a mistake. Too much pressure in
She
that
was
first curve.
skidding in. The back was loose, and she skidded into the first corner, so that was not the line she wanted.
Look at her tracking here, too.
Yeah.
This was probably the best lines we've seen through this bend away. 2 hits, that's the norm. She got through there with 2 hits.
So the BMW sled lies in second place. And there is Jamie Grubel-Poser. Met up with her husband Christian for the first time in a long while last week. He's been injured all season. Next up, the second of our 3 US sleds. First World Championship appearance for 32-year-old Brittany Reinbold, originally from Riverside, California. And her brakewoman, 33 in February, was Lauren Gibbs.
Good start, great start.
Great start from them.
Speed, not bad. Second best velocity, good for Lauren Gibbs.
Well, we call bobsleigh drivers drivers, but the technical term in other languages is pilot. Brittany Reinbold is literally a pilot. She actually teaches other people how to fly aircraft as well.
This is a pretty good line still by Brittany.
Talking to her in training yesterday, she was looking at trying to tidy up a couple of sections. Exit of S4, exit of Kreisel, and that's a good exit of the Kreisel.
Oh, she was close. She was late in the first Labyrinth, and she squared up.
Takes a little bit of speed out of the sled, but it's still a top 4 run. 6th position at the moment on the splits. So she might sag down to about 8th place, 7th at the line. That's a good run to start her first ever World Championship. And this is a track that she's only raced on twice in her career.
And she finished 15th at the race in January, just 3 weeks ago. So that's a pretty good opening run. And you know, the track thing, I think we can throw out that track thing. That was a pretty good run.
Yeah, that was a great start to the competition for Brittany Reinbold.
Look at the articulation of the cowling. That was a lot of steering to get off there and a little bit of a skid. Look at the snow. Look at the different ice patterns as you come through the straightaway. I got nervous here. See, she hits here. She's got to be forced over late there in the second Labyrinth to watch the sled square up. Does it get airborne? Ooh, that sled snuck through there. She was inches away from.
That's a good start. A nice move. She's cut a handler. Oh no, she hasn't. She's got a message on there. Next up is our double world, double Olympic champion Kaylee Humphries. Now, results on this track, she won back in 2015-16 in December. Her previous and only other win here back in the 2012-2013 pre-Olympic season.
Could be in the teens here. 5:20, 5:19.
She says this is definitely not on her list of favorite tracks, but if she comes out with a World Championship gold, it'll certainly change that.
Very surprised at that.
Silver in last year's World Championships in Innsbruck in Austria.
Didn't see anything, but very surprised. This is 2 of the better starters in the field. She should have been up there with Jamie Grubel-Poser.
Well, Melissa Lotholz has been something of a lucky charm with Kaylee Humphries. They've had 19 races together, 5 wins and 9 other podiums. So only 5 times when they've been together, they failed to be in the top 3.
Oh, here she comes. So they 1100s, now she's 400s back. Probably will have top 3 speed here. She's got great numbers. This has got to be the best speed.
At the line, it's going to be Canada 1-2. Kaylee Humphries ahead of Alicia Rissling and Jamie Grubel-Poser in 3rd.
Wow, what a comeback in the bottom part of the track. The only thing I can say about her there, I was surprised at her start time. 5th best start. I would have thought she'd have the top 1 or 2 starts.
Gave nearly a 10th away, so maybe they had a little slip at the start. We'll catch up and find out.
Well, you still have the top 4 sleds separated by 1,500, so this is not a 2-heat race.
Not by any stretch.
Watch these lines. This is the Olympic champion, 2-time world champion. Doesn't have a great love of this track. She's won on here before, and those lines. Great speed on the bottom.
There is Kaylee Humphries, your race leader. The first dozen sleds are down. And next up is The world champion from Winterberg 2015, Alana Myers-Taylor, with Kerry Jones behind her today. She has won with 3 different Joneses on the back of this sled, twice with Kerry, once with Brianna, once with Lolo Jones.
She's won 4 consecutive World Cup races, 5:17 start, that's expected. She crashed in her first heat of training. She's had issues on this track before. If she didn't crash in the opening race in Whistler, she'd be the World Cup leader by a lot.
She has not been out of the World Championship medals since Lake Placid 2012, which was her bronze medal appearance there.
2 beautiful lines right through there.
2,300 up going into the Kreisel.
And this is where she has some issues on the exit here. This looks good.
Look at that, like a knife through butter, right down the middle.
She hit there, though. She was late, then she got high there. So she made a mistake down on the bottom part of the track.
But you're right, she is on a tear. 4 consecutive World Cup wins, and now looking for a 3-peat here, down to 800s at the line. She has the lead, but it all
3 more to go, though. Boy, the American coaches just hold their breath. When she crashed here in the opening practice, opening heat, everybody just shook their heads because she's had a history of some issues on the exit of the Kreisel, and ironically, she got through there no problem, and it was down above Ecovand that she made a mistake. Now, this is textbook here. I mean, how can you do it any better than that? But her problem here, watch, she gets in here a little bit late. Look at where her marks are. She gets high there. Now watch her, she gets way too high here. It's the right-hand side of our screen. Taps has to go into the middle of the next curve. That's where she lost a lot of speed on the bottom.
There is Kerry Jones and Alana Myers-Taylor. Her husband Nick is down at the bottom humping the sleds around, sled dogging. Now then, this is Germany's big hope, Mariama Yamanka, the silver medalist in the World Championships, a bronze medalist here in January, and her brakewoman, Annika Jacek, the reigning world champion, won the title last year in Innsbruck with the now retired Anja Schneider-Heinze.
Jacek is some specimen athlete in the back. Look how quickly she gets in, gets down. Start time. Wow, 5:22. Jamaica has shown some great prowess.
Yep. 2nd World Championships for her.
5-5, that's a good sign. She didn't bleed any more time away. She gets this down to like 2 or 3 here. 6.
Little skid, but that'll be fine. She'll be right in the mix.
How high does she get there? Low.
Squares it up, coming down into the yellow curve and then out of the
Good
Kreisel.
speed, though. This is good speed.
68.5, as close as anybody. 800s away. She's right in contention, splitting the American Alana Myers-Taylor and the Canadian Kaylee
Good
Humphries.
lines.
And
900, 7th best speed, though. Surprised at that.
2nd or 3rd at the line, it is 3rd. 100th behind the double Olympic champion. That's a really good opening run from Mariama Yamanka of Germany.
Yeah, the Germans will take that. She came late in the heat. In the 2nd heat, everybody be bunched up together. They'll go 20th to 1 in the 2nd heat. So Yamanka, she's the German hope. She gets a start time like Jacek is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The lines, look at the back end of the sled. Nice, look at the skid here. Yeah. That was a little rocky skid there.
Yeah.
Back end left rudder. Now watch her lines. She's a little bit low, then climbs high.
Alana Myers-Taylor leading in the first of 4 heats in the Women's Bobsleigh World Championships from Kaylee Humphries and Germany's Mariama Yamanka. 15 sleds down, 7 to come. This is our Junior World Championship pairing. 23-year-old Misha McNeil from Consett, County Durham. 24-year-old Mika Moore from Cardiff in Wales. Commonwealth record holder in 4x100 on the back handles.
Pretty good times in training, but training is training.
One of the tiniest teams in the competition. Driver Misha, 5'6", brakewoman Mika, 5'4".
She barely looks over the counter, which is a great aerodynamic pose.
Yeah, as long as she can see out, that's fine. New sleds a couple of weeks ago. They didn't do the race here in January because they were in Winterberg at the Junior World Championships. It's a good looking run.
9.4, it's a kilometer down to the top speeds. Snakes through here.
Misha McNeil, also Youth Olympics silver medalist. And just want to say hi to Montel Douglas, who's back at home with a hamstring injury, who's also great for this season.
This is pretty good, 27-27. 10th best speed.
Looking for a shot at a top
That's
half
pretty
dozen.
good. She's only
100 behind Stephanie Schneider.
She's 500ths out of 4.
Yeah.
That's a great run.
Yeah, 4th place, 1900ths off the lead, and she is 500ths away. So that's a massive battle there.
It's how close this race is already.
Yep.
Great speed at the bottom. 3rd best speed, 4th best speed. Boy, I tell you, the sleds that went early had a big advantage. We're going to see the change in the second run. These are good lines from Misha McNeil. She was 2700ths back above the Kreisel, and she stayed with that deficit down the rest of the track. Yep. Did pretty good. In fact, she finished only 2400ths behind. That's a positive.
Olympic world champion Marc Louis Francis there, helping with the sleds. He'll be racing in the 4-man competition next weekend. Kristen Senkel of Germany, her driving debut was Europa Cup here in January 2016. She's competed in precisely 4 World Cup races. And brakewoman Anne Kristen Strack has also started 4 World Cups, 1 with Sandra Kroll, 3 with Senkel this season. So this is a very new young German team.
4th best velocity off the 7th best start. That's some good technique by the 2 of them getting around that first curve.
12th here in January, so going to be interesting to see.
That's really too high. Those S's for new pilots, that's one thing, dealing with those S's. Now you got to go through this Kreisel and then exit the Kreisel into that 100-meter danger zone of the Labyrinth coming up right here.
Central European silver medalist with Anja Schneider-Heinze back in 2011 during her brakewoman career. She was also 4th in the Olympic Games in Whistler with Sandra Kyriasis.
This track, it's not like the Eagles track we're on there 2 weeks ago. This track can cause havoc all the way to anybody, from the leader to the worst placing in the field. This track has got some challenges. The S's halfway down, and then the exit of the Labyrinth, or exit of the Kreisel into the Labyrinth, quite a danger zone.
First ever World Championships as a driver for Kristen Senkel in only her first full season of racing.
Watch how high she gets up near the roof, and then she drives it into the wall. That's the timing eye in the exit. Look at these pictures. And that's a hard hit. And then skidding down here. Look at the runner. She's trying to get control. She's inexperienced pilot, but great athlete here in the front seat for Germany. She's got some potential.
Romania's Maria Constantin with Angia Grecu, the 22-year-old behind her. Both of these women have been driving in the World Cup this season. Greku's done 4 World Cup races. Maria Constantin, 25-year-old former swimmer. Best World Cup results have been 8th places, 2 in Altenburg, 1 in Winterberg. They didn't do the race here in January either.
Her teammate finished 11th in Lake Placid driving. So, her brakeman is also the #2 Romanian driver.
It's a 2-driver sled, and in fact, both of them have also driven 4 women's sleds.
Romanians putting their hopes in this sled. Start is going to be their nemesis, as it always is. The 13th best speed off the 13th best start. 3100s is going to get out to 1500s by the time they get out of the S's. 35, that's not bad. Should have lost more time, but these are good lines. It's still raining in front of us, but not like we saw it earlier.
No. A little bit foggy in the start house, but not too bad.
Watch out here, I don't like this line. Whoa.
Little rocky from Maria Constantin. This is definitely not her favorite track either, I don't think.
Squared up. She almost was another victim of that dangerous section of the track.
Off a second back in 12th place, so this will put her around Brittany Reinbold of the USA. In fact, she's 400ths behind Reinbold in 13th spot. Paul Nyagu on the right, the coach, arch enthusiast, the man who basically makes this team happen. 52.15, just 500s behind the sled who came down right in front of her, Kristen Senkel. So from Christine de Bruyne in 10th down to Maria Constantin and Anne van Nieuwenhauser, we've got 5 sleds covered by 900s.
Look at these lines. I mean, this is too late coming into the last Labyrinth, and You know, look at her steer the sled. Look at the way the sled changed direction. Look at the back end of it airborne. If she didn't get some grip on those front runners, she would have been the second victim of the Labyrinth today.
Yeah. And that's why so many shots in the opening of our program are from here. Next up, Sabine Hafner. Her last World Championships was the last time the World Championships were here in Königssee in 2011.
Got some new runners on her sled she was telling me about. She says she's going to give up a lot of time at the start. But
and her great woman, Eveline Rebsamen, is the twin sister of the girl who was second off at the top of the hill in the other Swiss sled.
Identical twins in the competition. Look at these lines. She's 4,500s down. That's all relative to the start. 44, so she was 2,700s down at the start. This is good speed. Look at the speed there. Yeah. She was doing great in training.
That's as fast as anybody into the Kreisel now. How close can she get to a top 10 run?
Well, she has to be straight in the graveyard section, which is the uphill section. She's not. She's going to throw away some time. Their second best speed. Yeah. Look at that.
13th here in February. She's up to 10th place. That's exactly what she needed. A little bit of confidence. She was very disappointed in the January race here, rather than February, to finish so low down.
Well, she spent some money on some runners with that guy named Christoph Langen. And I think the runners are worth their weight because she was pretty good in training, and that shows her right there coming late in the field. She'll go early in the second run, middle of the pack. Here, this is a big mistake here on the exit of the Ecovon. You just don't know how uphill that is. TV doesn't do it justice. They call her the firecracker. You see why? Look at her personality.
Second of our Austrian sleds, 23-year-old Katrin Beil. This is her second World Championship. She finished 14th at home in Innsbruck last year. Crashed in training. She had to sit out a day of training. Their sled was damaged. Final day of training, they borrowed a brand new sled from the Russians, who then, after they went second fastest, phoned up and wanted it back. So they borrowed a sled from Decker of Belgium.
This is her first trip with that sled?
First ever time in the sled, other than fitting the foot pegs for her legs yesterday night.
Start velocity was pretty good. Sanne
Decker, a late change onto the back of that sled. The Youth Olympic gold medal brakewoman in 2012 takes a little clatter.
Well, you know, it's her first time down on the car. So
she's trying to figure out how the steering works on this sled.
She's going to figure out right here. Speed, 109.1, not too bad.
Well, off a 15th start, she was 12th place going into the Kreisel. What a great-looking line.
Pretty good.
And we know that the BT sleds fly on this track. She's just never driven one. If she can finish in the 14th, 15th place,
sixth best speed down here. This is great.
Well, 15th at the moment, Anne van Nieuwenhuizen of Belgium, and she's 2 spots in front of her in a Belgian sled.
She's in front of both Belgian sleds. They might take the sled back.
No, don't do that. Well, the Enderdecker's sled is in the race. The Enderdecker's great woman Mel Paulsen is in the race with Anne van Nieuwenhuizen. It's only Leander Decker who's not in the race because Belgium didn't qualify for 3 sleds.
Well, those are great lines here out of the S's. She gets into a skid and she lets it, takes her medicine, but that's a hard hit. So 2 hits, 4 hits. Good speed though.
Ever driving.
Look at her limp. She's got a broken foot.
She was injured in training as well. Alana Myers-Taylor leads with 20 sleds down and 2 to go. Don't forget, first of 4 heats. So all sleds that complete the runs will continue into Heat 3, and then the fast 20 go through into Heat 4. 2 sleds remaining then, both from Asian nations. Next year's Olympic Games are in Korea. Japan are resurgent, and we have China coming as well. Konomiya Sazu, the 30-year-old former brakewoman, raced in Whistler behind Nanami Hino. And then last year, she was still braking for Maria Oshigiri, who we saw earlier in the race. So this is her first ever season driving a bobsled. Therefore, her first World Championships as a driver.
No 2 athletes go around this track smiling and having more fun than this pair right here.
And her brakewoman, 26-year-old Matsumi Sakauchi, it's her first ever season on ice as well. So talk about a rookie pairing.
17th best start, but the 14th best velocity.
tells you something about Batumi's ability on the backhanders to get the speed into the sled. And this is what has been so impressive. The Japanese have seemed to come from nowhere this season.
Well, they have Hans Wimmer as a coach, 109.5. Hans Wimmer, he's the first European the Japanese have ever hired, bobsled or skeleton, to help them compete. And the Japanese, Oshigiri is right now in 8th place.
Yeah, Oshigiri had the early draw first off. Not always an advantage for the nerves, but she made the most of it. And at the moment, 20th place on the splits for her teammate. So Hiromi Asazu starts her first ever World Championships as a driver with a 20th place run. Don't forget, one of our sleds already crashed out, so there will be no more runs for Nadezhda Sergeyeva of Russia. Russia's main hope of a top 6 finish, you have to say.
Well, the graveyard, she gets too high in that Echelon. And you can see her playing with the runners, the back ends, and the skid. But, you know, again, the Japanese have made some great strides.
Königssee Asazu, a newcomer to driving, but 30-year-old bobsledding veteran. On the other end of the age scale and experience scale is Qingying of China. Mani Mahata there in the long back coat at the background, former world champion in bobsleigh, is their coach. Qingying and Ma Yunyuan, 20 years old, the driver 19. They have had 4 races in their careers.
On the North America's Cup, this is their first race on the big.
Never been to this track before.
Yes, they have. They were here earlier. They trained in December or November here.
Right, but haven't raced here.
Not raced here, but Mahata's had them on some schedule. But none of them have been down a track until 13 months ago. And they probably had 200 trips at about 7 different tracks. Mahata, the world champion from 2011. Look at these lines.
Nice lines. And of course, the reason that China has suddenly appeared is the 2022 games will be in Beijing. 1:10.0. 68.4 miles an hour, that's 3rd or 4th fastest.
That's really good. Of course, she's driving a brand new Wimmer sled.
Yeah, but you could give that to me and it wouldn't be going like this.
Excuse me. 93, this is their debut. This is
Qingying
unbelievable.
of China.
China has
across
arrived.
the line in 20th place.
There's
so Mani Mahata, not only does she get down, she gets down well.
She'll be the first one down on the next run.
And she is ahead of Asazu of Japan.
So it's 1000s. You know, 13 months ago, she'd never driven a bobsled. Here she is at a world championship stage, being coached by a former world champion.
And 19 years of age, she'd probably never driven a car either.
China, welcome China to Bob and Skeleton. Look forward to the next 5 years.
Our race leader after the first of our 4 heats in the Women's Bobsleigh World Championship is Ilana Myers-Taylor, the world champion in 2015. Is looking for a 3-peat of wins on this Königssee track. She's won the last 2 outings here, and if she can do that again, she will take her 2nd World Championship title. Well, there's still a lot of water to come under that particular bridge. Take a look at how tight it is at the top. Top 3 covered by 900ths of a second. That's effectively a dead heat. One slip at the start will wipe out more than that. Alicia Rissling of Canada, what a good run, confirming how strong she's been this season. Jamie Grubel-Poser, Stephanie Schneider, Misha McNeil, 7th fastest. And look at that group, from 1900s back down to Misha McNeil, 600ths of a second, covering 4th down to 7th.
Catherine Breer, from Austria.
Hengster, Sabina Hafner in 10th place. And then slightly disappointing for Nadezhda Sergeyeva and the Russians, crashing out in the lower Labyrinth and ending their World Championship appearance. Well, that is the first heat done and dusted. A lot of racing to get through in the fortnight here in Königssee, Bavaria. Stay with us as we get ready to turn around and go again in the 2nd heat to round out day 1 of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Championships.